Well, I guess we'll get started. I really didn't mean for this to be very formal, so I'm not trying to do any kind of stand on ceremony. Didn't plan on making a big speech or anything. I just wanted to have a conversation with people, especially on the north side of town, and find out the issues that matter to the north side of town and discuss the things that y'all would like to have done. Because, I mean, I can come up with all kinds of ideas, but that doesn't mean that my idea is what y'all want. And so I wanted to talk about those kind of things, and I thought just kind of discuss some of the things that was important to y'all and kind of go from there. I definitely would like to see the north side of town get attention, and we are getting, some of the communities are getting to know there's some things happening there, and that's great. And I'd like very much to see more happen in more parts of the town. Like you're talking about Pleasant Valley, it doesn't kind of get much of attention.
Well, except they took Thompson Pool away.
Yeah, that
It's the only
was,
attention it's gotten.
that was very unfortunate, and I'd like to,
Not that I use it or have kids that use it, but still, there's a lot of kids that used it.
right. Well, I took my kids there. That's where my kids went swimming.
Yeah.
You know, because I took them to Thompson Park, like I said, I lived up there in Pleasant Valley when I first moved in. When I first moved to town, I lived outside of town on Cherry Avenue, and then I moved over there on Ford, and I was there for 5 years. And that was when I took care of my mother. She had Alzheimer's, and then she left, and we ended up moving to Eastridge for a year, and then I came back. I lived in Hamlet for a year, and then I went to San Jacinto, and I stayed there for a while. So just kind of been all over the north side of town. And Thompson Pool was always where I took my kids. It's where we went swimming and did some stuff. My question to y'all is, what would you like to see done? Do you want that pool replaced with another pool? Do you want it expanded upon and made a whole play area, like a water park kind of thing? Or what would y'all like to see done?
I think just a pool would be wonderful.
Just to have the pool back?
Just to have the pool back. But you know, they didn't keep it up. The last time I think they did anything, it was in the 80s. Why didn't they keep it up?
Yeah, they just let it run down.
They just let it run down. Oh,
They
yes.
know.
Well, that's-
the things like-
Replace it. It shouldn't be that expensive to do.
Well, and I don't know the cost of replacing the pool. I've researched a lot of things. That's not one of them that I've actually gotten a price on, but I know it's not necessarily cheap like your backyard pool's gonna be. It's gonna be more money, but, and then it begs the question, where are we gonna get the money for that?
No, that's true.
So, you know, and that's definitely an issue that we would have to look at, and without being privy to all of whatever that's
Right.
with the city council, it's hard for me to say that we're gonna take these dollars here. I have some ideas and things I'd like to address and ways of maybe maneuvering that, because there are things that maybe we could put on the back burner a little bit and get the Thompson Pool back up. You know, and that's kind of my thinking on that, because
Well, the thing that upset me was they didn't keep it up.
yeah,
They just let it go.
yeah, and that's
And that's the
that's
city's
not okay.
responsibility.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
They
agree,
just
and
let
it's
it go.
very unfortunate that it was not kept up with, and that's
Yeah.
something that definitely has to be addressed, and then it begs the question, what else has not been kept up that we don't know about? Because we just all kind of found out about that, you know.
It's
and-
suddenly they're just closing it out of the blue, and it's like,
The zoo is another prime example.
Yeah,
When my sister moved to Lubbock, she said their zoo down there is light years ahead of our zoo. And we're about the same size city, so why do they have a better zoo than we do?
yeah,
well, ours is better than it used to be.
Sure.
yeah. Yeah, I'd like to see more done with the zoo as well, but to my thinking, the pool is a little bit more of a priority at this time. Now, not that I wouldn't be willing to do things with the zoo in the future, but again, that goes back to funding and all of that stuff, and so that's going to be a lot of things to look at. I mean, there's a lot of things I'd like to do. There's a lot of things I think we need to do in town, and infrastructure, which I think taking care of the pool would kind of come into that category. I may not be, I don't know if that's specifically considered an infrastructure issue, because most people think of roads and sewers, but it's still the upkeep, which is infrastructure is your upkeep. You know, it's typically applied to roads and stuff, and we have a lot of roads that need attention too. And so
Oh, yeah.
it's a matter of getting all that put together, and we spend a fair amount of money in some neighborhoods, they seem to not have potholes, and they seem to have parks that tend to be, you know, in working order, and so I think it kind of begs the question, well, how come this over here looks good and this over here doesn't? And there may not be an answer to that, but I think we need to see about, maybe we could share some of the funding a little bit and spread it around a little more evenly, instead of just focus on just one area. You know, not that I don't want them to be taken care of either, because then if you don't take care of them, then they get in the same situation. But there's got to be a way to manage that.
Spread the money around to the different areas.
Yeah.
And Thompson Park, the thing I have about Thompson Park, I don't know if you ever go out there when they're busy. They park in the grass, they do whatever they want, they have trash freaking everywhere. And nothing's done about it. They shouldn't be able to park on the grass. I mean, that's what the grass is for. So we have a pretty park out there, and they park on the grass, they park anywhere they want to, they don't care.
Do we not have the city police that cruise out there?
Our police department is at least 30% understaffed at the moment, and it's not going to get any better anytime soon.
Well, that's another issue I'd like to take
That's a big issue.
Yeah.
But we have a $70 million brand new baseball stadium.
Yeah, don't. And we're getting ready to have golf carts downtown.
Amarillo has one of the lowest paid police departments in the state.
One of the most what?
Lowest paid police departments in the state.
Yeah,
So-
I think that the police department does have some areas that could be addressed that we need to try to.
And they've kind of been put on the back burner too.
Yeah, well, and the thing of it is when the police aren't up to the staffing and everything that they need for the city, the size, then things kind of tend to get not addressed. They just focus on the really important crimes, so to speak. And that's kind of why I think we've gotten to where we've all just kind of just accepted that the boulevard has the prostitution. We've just accepted it. It's just become the norm, and that's not okay, because prostitution is human trafficking. Human trafficking is slavery when it is addressed in that way. Now, human trafficking is much broader than that, but in the context of the prostitution, those women they didn't grow up and say, hey, I'm going to be a prostitute when I grow up. You know, I mean, no one does that. So they got into that lifestyle either because they ran away from home, they got out of a bad situation and ran into another one, or were coerced and manipulated into getting into the lifestyle. And then once they were into it, they don't know how to get out. And they don't think they can get out because, well, if they go talk to anyone, what was your last job? Well, I was a prostitute. Well, that's just not going to fly very good. Let me go apply over here at this job. What was your last job? I was a prostitute at Boulevard. Well, they're not going to hire you. So they're stuck. They're stuck there. And we've got to do more about that. We've got to address things like that. Because we can't just pick and choose the victims that we help. You know, car crashes, they get help. You know, domestic violence gets some help. You know, and I know they're trying to do what they can with the drug situation and things like that. And I realize, you know, but they need more of what they need to have to do their job. And that's how I see that. And I agree with you completely that the police department needs to have more funding.
They said on a good night, you might have 11 officers citywide. Does that make us feel safe at home?
Yeah. Well, I had a state trooper tell me, actually back when I first started running, that for the city of our size, Amarillo is short about 40 police officers. That's a significant shortage.
It is.
Which we could have used money from another project for the police department.
We could probably start by cutting the code enforcement people. They seem to have more time on their hands than what they know to do.
Well, and there's a lot of things that, write that down. Hi, how are you? Good. Come on in, sit wherever.
Say just sit in the back.
I don't know, we might be in standing room only here, so. I lost my train of thought now, so whatever I was gonna say.
Talking about the police, staffing the police.
Definitely need to work on that. And,
I saw your interview on
And, you know, I could sit here and say that I'm going to get the funding here and get the funding there. But like I said, until I'm in office, assuming that I win, then it's hard, it might be hard to say, once I'm in office, I might look at stuff and say, well, maybe we can't. But I can tell you that will not deter me from trying to make sure that we have a fully staffed police force. You know, maybe I can't sit here and tell you that I'm gonna get X number of dollars from this program over here, put it over in this program here. I can say that I'll try, I can say that I want to. But there may be things that I'm not privy to because I'm not on city council already that would affect that. But I will not give up my desire to reduce crime in Amarillo and to fully staff the police force. You know, some of you have already heard me say that you know, the light bulb went off for me when I was approached by a man who thought I was a prostitute. You know, I'm in a t-shirt and blue jeans, and he thinks I'm a prostitute. You know, that was quite the experience, you know, and it really kind of just made me go, why is this happening? And I was on 6th Street. I wasn't on the boulevard. I was over off 6th Street. I was not on the boulevard. So that, and if I had been on the boulevard, I'd been, well, this is just where it is. But no, I was over on 6th Street and this happened to me, and I'm like, we have a problem if this is happening in other parts of town. We have a problem. And that's what got me, probably one of the early things, because this happened a couple years ago, so this was one of the early things that got probably the foundations of my getting to this point. I won't say that it was singularly the thing that made me decide to run, but it was definitely one of the things that I haven't forgotten. It's been in my mind ever since. So we've talked about the Thompson Pool, we've talked about the police department, and what about like the roads and stuff? I know there are issues with some of the roads. What all roads are the worst that need to be addressed, or is there another issue that you think is more important than the condition of the roads at this time?
Well, the traffic lights are atrocious. Trying to get across town is a nightmare, especially certain parts of town. If you're coming down Bell Street, anytime in the afternoon, you're going to have a line of cars backed up because they do not have that synchronized. You've got the lights at Bell at Plains, you're trying to get into it, and it's stopped, and you can't get across. You've got people sitting in that intersection trying to get through it. I mean, Randy Burkett mentioned when he was still in office that it hasn't been updated since 1984. So
I can believe it.
I'm surprised we did that early. So we need new software for our traffic lights. If we're going to grow, we've got to do something with the traffic situation because it's getting worse.
Well, and I've noticed that too, that the traffic is, if you see the traffic, if you just watch the traffic, this light changes, we got a mass of cars that comes, and then they stop at this light. And then you have a backup, and then the people are turning, and then the light changes, and then they go to the next, you know, and you're right, you're absolutely right, they need to be synchronized. And I've thought about that myself, that that's something that we need to do. And from what I understand, I'm doing a study on that, I believe, on the lights. I don't know to what end. I just heard that they were either considering it or beginning it. I don't know if they've actually started it yet. But
Same thing with downtown. Depends on what time you go through downtown if the lights are in sync or not. And I know recently they had to get it apart because the light was red every light.
yeah,
But that was due to a part that they had to wait to get, which is better now. But you could go down through town 2 o'clock in the afternoon and the lights would be synced differently from going in the morning or whatever. I don't understand that.
45th and Western is the third most dangerous intersection in the entire state.
34th and Western?
45th.
45th and Western.
Is the third most dangerous intersection in the entire state of Texas.
That wouldn't surprise me.
I'm surprised we don't have more on the list.
well, yeah. You know, and that's the thing and I'm not trying to compare us to other cities because there's things, we were just talking about this, that there are things that we can look to other cities for, but at the same time, we can't just say if another city's doing it, we should do it. Because we're not other cities, you know,
Right.
and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but the best example I can think of is the trash card program. We are about the windiest city there is. And that is why I think it's an ill-advised program. However, I do understand why some people prefer that. If I was sticking my garbage bag on the side of the street, I would prefer the cart.
I can see that. I can see
So-
people who have trash bags, had to take trash bags out, get the carts.
Yeah.
People who want to keep their dumpsters, we shouldn't have carts forced on us.
No,
We had cars before, and it didn't work.
Amarillo is one of the 2 windiest cities in America. And where did I get that information? From the Amarillo Globe News.
Yeah.
Amarillo is one of the 2 windiest cities in America.
Yeah, Chicago don't have nothing on us.
No.
It really
Asked
does.
Oprah when she was in town, she thought, man, this place is really windy.
And back to the traffic, a light that's, I'm all for, there's too many people running red lights. And it's happened more than once and put my car in danger and the people in my car. So I can understand, I can see 2 sides of the cameras. Because you can't have a policeman at every light. But then again, you can go too far with this and it becomes a moneymaker for the city. And what we're doing is we're violating the citizens' wallets by just making money off the citizens. And one of them in town that was notorious for that was there on Coulter between 34th and I-40. And it was Elmhurst. And that light was, that yellow was too short and it was making lots of money for the city. Making money. It wasn't people. In fact, they got me twice and my wife was with me and it cost me $75 twice.
Wow.
Both times. Well, now, that's not right. It's one thing to stop crime and to stop the citizen that's running the red lights. Well, that's for everybody's safety. But to make money off of us, that's the wrong attitude of the city. And it was brought to the attention of the city and they wouldn't do a blankety-blank thing about it. And I know because I read in the Amarillo Globe News, a letter to the editor, a lady from Canyon said, I come to shop at the mall. I turn off and I get on Canyon and I go north past 34th and I've gotten 4 tickets at that Elmhurst traffic camera. And she said, I am not coming to shop in Amarillo anymore. And what is that? That kind of thinking doesn't hurt not only does it rob the driver, the citizen, I mean, they're citizens, they're Canyon, but they're part of Randall County too. But that's not good for Amarillo's economy either. And, come on, I don't care what your stupid, computer guy says, the yellow is too short. I've been driving since I was a little boy on the farm, and that's several decades. And I know when a yellow is too short. And you think you got so much more time, and then it turns red and the camera got you. Now that's, to me as a citizen, that's criminal for the city of Amarillo to operate like that. Criminal.
That just happened today to my husband.
Do what?
That just happened today to my husband on Pierce. Pierce and Amarillo.
Well, my thing with the
yellow
cameras-
light was so fast that
Yeah, and that's not okay.
no,
No,
it's not okay. 'Cause
it's
you look at it,
legalized
they get it in
theft,
the
is
mail.
what it is.
Well, and it certainly, I can certainly see why you say that. And my thing with the cameras is I've never been a fan of them because in our constitutional republic, we're supposed to be able to face our accusers and we shouldn't have to be under the threat of being falsely accused of crimes. And with the camera, it's difficult to face your accuser because your accuser is the camera. And if you're not the one driving the vehicle and someone else is driving the vehicle, but you get the ticket because the car's in your name, so then so it's kind of, it's a sticky situation. I'm just not a big fan of them. And that said, I mean, we do need to be aware of people running the red lights, and that is an issue that needs to be monitored and taken care of. So it's a touchy thing because I really think it's borders on unconstitutional. I just don't think they're the way to go. And so that's something I would definitely have to. I'm sorry.
The state legislature's in the process of outlawing them anyway.
I said-
The state legislature's in the process of outlawing them.
Yeah,
anyway.
and of course now if they pass that, then we won't really have much of a choice in the matter. They're going to have to go.
Well, the
Yeah.
only sticking point that they have right now is the one group wants to grandfather in the cities that already have them, and the majority is saying no.
No.
That defeats the whole purpose.
Yeah,
All
that would
have to.
defeat the
One
whole
goes,
purpose
the other
of
goes.
the-
But it goes back to the attitude. If you live in a city that's been stealing from you at Elmhurst and Coulter and refuses to do anything about it, when the citizen says you're out of order, this is not right, they can make it illegal in Austin and then it stops, but you still got that same attitude at Amarillo, downtown Amarillo. And I know this lady's on the city council. I'm not pointing at her. I'm pointing at an attitude of the government. And we cannot, that's wrong attitude to be doing the citizens that put you in office and then turn around and do that to them. That's not right.
Well, I agree completely. And the people on the city council, whether I get elected or don't, the people on the city council are there at the will of the people. And it behooves anyone on the city council to pay attention to what the people want and what the people ask for and what the people need. And I'm not saying that the city council hasn't been trying to do that, but it certainly has kind of felt that way, because I've heard from so many people that just feel that the city council is not addressing what the city wants and needs. There are some people who feel that it is, but there are an awful lot who feel like it isn't. And that's something that can't just be brushed over. We can't just pretend like that's not something that's a concern for the people, because there's far too many people who are pretty upset about things. And I'm not trying to say that anyone on the city council isn't doing what they think is best or right, but that is the situation we're in, is people are unhappy.
The same thing with the trash cards, they're forced on us.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want trash cards. But I said, to me, it's okay, people who have to carry garbage bags out, I can understand them needing trash cards.
Right.
But for people who already have dumpsters and stuff, why?
My alley is, they grade it frequently after rains when it gets rutted. So it's in good shape, and we've got dumpsters. And I hope they don't put carts out there.
See, I don't know exactly where they plan on putting them.
Well, if there's any plan to put them in other places, I'm unaware of it. Because everything that I've heard from the city council is that they're only going in the places where the alley is too narrow or a dead end, which is difficult for the truck, or houses that don't have an alley at all, which is the people putting them out in the cart. And,
Where the dumpsters are in the street.
and the dumpsters are in the street.
And the dumpsters are in the street in Pleasant Valley.
I remember that.
Do y'all not have alleys out there?
Basically
Not
none.
really.
Yeah.
Not really.
But the thing is, we went to when they were first promoting it, we went to a meeting. And, at first it was a can for trash and one for recycling. Well, the recycling went out the door, I don't know why, but then they want to charge people to let whoever's picking up the trash take their can out to the street or whatever. And I thought, those are going to be elderly disabled.
Yeah.
Why the heck are you going to charge? And they're going to charge them by the foot. What the heck is that about?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was.
I'm 800 feet from the street.
Oh, so you got the long one. Yeah.
Let's see, what's that going to cost? $1,000 to get it out there? Well, now
I understand. Well,
and we
my
have
biggest
acreage
thing.
out there. We have acreage out
Right,
there.
yeah. I know when I was out there, I had an acre.
And the guy that first did it, he said, and we have what do you call them? Not gullies, but drainage ditches. And I said, well, where in the heck will I put it? I can't put it on the street because we don't have curbs and stuff. And he goes, well, put it in your drive. Oh yeah, I'm going to put my trash can in the drive so I can't get it out of my place. They don't.
And there's no sidewalks, there's no, like you said, there's no curb, it's the grass and the road.
Yes.
And so that's definitely, hopefully it's not gonna be something that you'll have to deal with.
I hope not too.
because there's gotta be a way, and I'm not even gonna sit here and try to tell you that I have the answer,
Well, no.
because I don't. But I think that conversations like this is what will help us to get to that point. You know, if we can get to where we can have the conversation and hear from enough people and get ideas, we can find ways to make it better. Because, I mean, I totally understand the people that don't have an alley, their houses, their properties back to back, and they were putting the bag on. I get it. The cart is better than that. I totally
Right.
get it. But at the same time, there's a lot of people that don't want the carts, and like you brought up with the elderly and stuff, and that's something that I take a lot of issue with. You know, having taken care of my mother when she was elderly, she couldn't have taken her
It's
car
not
down.
right. I mean,
And
if they
if
only
they're
have
on a fixed
something.
income, how can they pay the extra? I mean, and we're talking like a lot more extra, not just a little bit extra.
Well, I know, a lot
You know,
more,
it's
you're
like,
right.
what was it, I think it was 15 to 50?
Oh, no, I think it's more than that. This lady here probably knows the exact amount.
It was 30 to 50.
30 something to-
Yeah, 30 to
30-something and up, yeah.
And that's monthly.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I think as a city as a whole, and not just the trash cart program, but I am of the opinion that once a person has reached the age of 65, they shouldn't have to pay full price for some of these things. Sure, they need to pay for their trash pickup and they need to pay for certain things, but it shouldn't be as much, because who's paid the taxes for all their years? Who's contributed the most is the older folks, and the older folks there should be a break somewhere. There should be a line. I'm thinking at the age 65, the typical retirement age, we should be able to give people a break.
Yeah,
You
like,
know.
cut your property taxes in half.
Well, I don't know if I can say that could happen, but it would be nice to be able to do a break for that, you know.
Because a lot of
and-
people, they won't be able to pay the property. I know they get a break on property taxes when they turn 65, but it's not that much of a break.
Well,
I know.
and then things like doubling the price of having your trash picked up is not helping. You know, and like you said, most of these people are on a fixed income. And if you're on a fixed income, the last thing you need is for the price of anything to double. And that's an estimate, but I mean, you know, your trash bill's gonna double if you have to have someone to help you. Now, granted, and some people can have, you know, sons and daughters and nieces and nephews and neighbors that can help them, but that's only some people. And so, you know, it's great to have neighbors that you can rely on, and I think we do need to have more of a sense of community and where people do reach out to each other. But the city itself can't say, well, that's just what you're gonna have to do. You know, and for the city to be of the position that, well, your neighbors can just help you, well, that's just not being realistic.
It's not
because
for
people-
them to say.
Exactly, it's not for the city to say, and, you know, so putting an extra burden on someone because your neighbor can help you is something that I think is just not fair. Because not everyone can have that.
Not everyone has family.
Not everyone has family, not everyone has, especially if they can't get out of their house, if they're a shut-in, they can't go talk to the neighbors and make friends with them and say, will you take my trash? If they're shut in, they can't get out and go talk to their neighbor. You know, and so there's a lot, there's a lot of different scenarios that could come into play and why someone can't have someone to help them. And so it's, you know, not that I would like to see the bill go up for everybody, but I would rather have seen everyone's bill go up $1 or $2 than to charge the elderly and the disabled. As much as I don't like that either, that would be better in my opinion. Now, maybe you all would have a better way that you would handle it, but that's what I would have thought of. That it would have been better. Not that I would have wanted to do it at all, but we have the trash carts now, and it's. I know a lot of people say get rid of them, but it's going to be difficult because some people really like it and some people prefer it. So that's a dialogue that we need to have. That's a conversation
Well, I think it
that as a
should be
city we need to have.
choice of the neighborhood if they want them or not. I think it should be a
Yeah.
choice.
Then you have to get into what establishes a neighborhood. What are the boundaries of my neighborhood? Who has a say in whether we have trash carts or not?
We out in Pleasant, where, do you live in Pleasantville?
No, I
Oh.
wish I did.
It's pretty well, you can figure out what the neighborhood is. Take my word for it.
Yeah, in Pleasant Valley you can, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And some neighborhoods are like that and some neighborhoods are not.
I know.
You know, and so it's a dynamic issue to try to wrap your mind around all the different scenarios and all the different things that could come into play. And I don't know that I would have voted for trash carts if I was in the position to vote for it when it was first brought up. But we're past that point now, so
Okay.
now we've got to try to either accept it or modify it. And so
I'm all
that's a
for
whole nother thing, and I'd like to do some things different with it. I definitely would like to address the charging the people that can't get their carts out. I'd like to address that.
I like the idea of this thing brought up over here. Now, what's the boundaries of the neighborhood? Now, I don't know the boundaries, but I tell you what, more and more people would like to be heard. And, you know, whether it's on your block or on your street or in your precinct, you know, we have precincts and so forth. It's nice for the people, you know, local people to be heard instead of just the powers downtown. And I realize the powers downtown are, you know, they've got a lot of money and they've been there a long time and maybe they own the bank. I mean, I'm not against that. We got to have all those things. I'm not against the bank. I'm not against downtown. But then again, it's the idea too, realistic or unrealistic. You know, she thinks that maybe it's not realistic because we don't know the boundaries. But I think people would like to be heard in their community, their neighborhood, on their block, whatever you want to say. This lady right here is nodding with me. You know, there's a lot of power and voices and money and strength downtown or whatever. And that's that way everywhere you live. I mean, I grew up in towns. That's normal. But still, it's also important for me I want people to represent me that want to hear people on my street too. Now they're going to hear what the big boys downtown want, what the big money downtowns want, what the big businesses want. And that's all appropriate. I'm not against them. We got to have them to have a city. But I want somebody to represent me. And I know it's not single member. I'm not into that thing, okay? But I want people that represent me that are interested in that are interested in my voice on my block, on the street where I live, whether it's North Amarillo, South Amarillo, East Ridge, or over here to Bishop Hills. We all pay taxes. We all have children. And so I know there's a lot of the people too. We want to be heard too. We want our voice to count. And just say, well, you live over there, you know, okay, I heard you, but it's what somebody else thinks that counts more. I don't buy that. I pay my taxes too. I pay the same percentage they do.
Well, and that's something I think that the city, in all fairness, I think they try, but I think they need to try harder on getting the word out. Because there's a lot of times that there are meetings and town halls and things like this that the word doesn't always get out. That you go to not everyone goes to the City of Amarillo page. You know, a lot of people don't go look it up and go, well, when there's our meeting and when can I go? And then you get to the website and it's pretty straightforward, but some people have trouble with websites and with online stuff, you know, and so there needs to be more outreach to the people. I really believe so, and I'm not going to say I have the answer to that, but I'm certainly willing to find the answer to that, to look into what different ways and new ways of doing that. And one idea that I have, and I have no idea how it would implement, it take a lot of looking into, is I would like to, since most people have computers nowadays, I would like to find a way for those who are shut-ins especially and can't get out, if they have a webcam, maybe they could make a video and say, this is my question or a comment for the city council. And then maybe we could play that during the public comment time. And I don't know, and now setting up live streaming and having conversation back and forth might be a little bit more difficult, but if they can at least get their voice heard, you know, that would be more than you're getting now. Because if you can't get out and you can't get down there because of whatever disability or whatever you have, then your voice is not getting heard. And those are the people that are getting, like the trash carts, they're getting charged extra. Well, they didn't have opportunity to get the voice heard because you have to go to the city council, or you have to go to this meeting here, or you have to go there. And if they're shut in, they can't get their voice heard. And they're the ones that got taken advantage of on it. And so I'd like to find a way to get around that so that the people who don't have the ability to get out and get down there, that they can have an option to have their voice heard as well. I don't know how that would all play out. I haven't gotten all the little details of that worked out, but there has to be a way that we can do that. There has to be a method that we could do that.
And
I
a lot
mean,
of people like, you know, okay, I'm on Facebook, I'm on the Facebook people. You think the city of Amarillo could have a Facebook page that tells you when all their meetings are gonna be?
no, that would definitely.
Because sometimes the city site is just a pain in the, to get around.
Mhm.
Well, and sometimes it can be difficult to find what you're looking for.
Yes.
Because, excuse me, because in all fairness, again, to the city, and I'm not trying to bash the city, but in all fairness to the city, there's a lot of information there. You know, everything that they do, which is a lot of things, is on that one site. So it can be confusing sometimes to navigate it, because I've tried to search it to find information and to read up on this thing and what happened and how did we
Well,
get
and
to
sometimes
that.
it's very vague of what they're gonna be discussing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'd like to do some more with getting that to be a little more clear. And I'm not a tech wizard by any means, but I do get on Facebook. I do use my computer. And so I know when a site is easy to use and when a site is difficult to use. And most government sites, be they state, local, or federal, are just a little clunky. I don't know who it is that designs them or what they think is good about how they've designed it, and I'm sure they spend a lot of hours looking at it and they can go right to whatever they're looking for because they've looked at it for long enough. But most of those sites that are created by the government are clunky, and I would like to do a little bit with ours to make it a little more user friendly. I really, because it is clunky. It is. I agree with that. And I had some suggested questions, and I didn't keep myself a copy up here. So I'm trying to remember.
Public meetings, Thompson.
Yeah, let's talk about the public
Right.
meetings. I'd like to hear what y'all think about that, because I've heard so many different things from so many different people with different opinions that.
So they don't have them at night anymore.
Correct.
For how long?
Oh, when did they change that? They've changed it and a couple of different times, and I don't remember exactly when they changed it, but it's been.
I admit I haven't been to very many public meetings.
Well, I haven't been to I can't go to them now very often. I have to get off from work, so I haven't been to a lot of them either.
Yeah.
But you can go and watch them, and that's, I'm very grateful for that.
But don't you have to, what do you have to do to be able to speak? Don't you have to?
You have to sign up.
To speak.
You have to sign up.
Has it always been that way?
I don't think it was. When I went to, this was, Harper was mayor. I went to several meetings back then, and we didn't have to sign up. And it was at the end of the city council meeting, and then it just had till everyone was done pretty much is when they so sometimes those lasted really long, because a couple of them that I went to, there was a lot of people there.
And I can understand not taking a lot of time to say what you want to say, but I think everybody should have the chance to say something if they choose to.
Yeah. Well, and that goes
And not
back
have
to
sign up
hearing
to be
the
on a
voice of the
list to
people.
get in line.
Right. Well, when the city council meeting comes, if you might know what they're going to talk about, but you don't know what was said that they talk about it. And we agree that they voted on it already, but I mean, maybe you still want to have something to say, or maybe they had something they didn't vote on and you want to give your input on. And that's why I like the public comment better at the end of the city council meeting, because then you can comment and reflect on what they talked about. That said, it's also good to have your opportunity to have your comment at the beginning, because if your voice really does make a difference, then they can weigh what you said before they vote. So it's kind of a which way's better. I'm not really sure which way's better. I just know that when I went to the ones in the evening, there was a lot more people there, and a lot more people had something to say.
Yeah.
So, as far as before and after, I don't know that I have. I would want to hear from more people before I could say I would want to change that part of it. But I would like to change the meetings to evening because I know how much easier it would be for me, and I know how many people have said to me that they don't like this time.
And that people should be able to voice their opinion before anything is set in stone.
I agree. I agree. That goes back to,
'Cause they
people
don't-
need to know when the meetings are, because
The
not
city
everyone knows when the
doesn't
city's
represent
at.
everybody. It does not represent everybody.
It's gotten to where it feels that way. It does, it does.
It's true though.
Well, and like I said, I'm not really trying to bash the city.
I know you're not.
And so I'm not gonna kind of go down that road
But
just
that doesn't
because
stop me.
I'm trying to say, I want to be as positive as I can. But the perception that I've heard from a lot of people is that they're not being heard, that they go down there and they say stuff and then
They
it
don't
and it goes
represent the
nowhere.
whole city, no.
And so I've heard that more than a few times. So, and that's something that has to be addressed, it has to be changed. Whether I get elected or not, or Frida stays in office, hopefully that she can take that back to the city council and say, look, we need to work on the connection with the people, because my sense is this election is gonna come down to that. If most of the people in Amarillo feel like they're not being heard, they're gonna vote one way. If they think that they're being heard plenty, they're gonna vote for the incumbents. And so that's what I think is really gonna shape this election. I really, really will. That issue probably as much as any of the other issues. And so, I don't
There's a
know.
lot of unhappy people in Amarillo, I guarantee you.
Well, and I guess it depends on who you talk to.
I
I've been
know,
talking
but
to a lot of unhappy
Okay,
people,
maybe
so.
I'm talking to unhappy people.
Well, and I have too, so, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I know that some people, have a lot of people that say things, I've heard people say positive things, so. I've heard a lot
Well, yeah.
more people who weren't positive, but I've heard people that say positive things, so it just depends on what crowd you're in and who's talking and the subject matter, I suppose. But there's a lot of things to address with the city, and I love that we've talked about some of these things, because some of these issues we've talked about are really important. And especially the feeling that a lot of people have that they're not being heard. And that's important. And that's one of the things that that's why I wanted to have this, was so that we could hear, I want to hear from people, and I want to know what people want and what the people need, feel that they need. The city can say, I know they need this, but if the people think that something else is more important, like we talked about the Thompson Pool, but maybe the roads are more important right now, or maybe the
Well, yeah, I'm
drainage
not
is
saying
more
that
important.
Thompson
Yeah.
Pool's at the top of the list.
Oh,
or
no,
anything like that.
and I'm not suggesting that you are.
I
I'm
was
just saying
just-
that
it was
if you
a
don't hear from
shock.
the people,
It was
you
a
don't.
shock.
It surprised me too. I was really
Suddenly,
surprised.
boom, no more.
I
Out of
was,
the blue.
wasn't expecting that. It surprised me as well, so. And I think it did a lot of people, and I think that's why it's so indelible in so many people's minds, is because it was so sudden. And the fact that has been let go and not been taken care of and maintained is the tragedy of it. Because if it was just maintained, it would never come to this point.
Well, it might have been real sudden, but I can assure you, or I'll just say this, I strongly believe it was being planned for some time. But it, just like that, it happened. And it came suddenly to the public, but it had been, you don't plan, a city doesn't plan something like that quickly. They've been making plans for a while, behind wherever they make plans. There's plans made besides just at the city council meeting. And so, a wise person doesn't make a decision like that overnight, but it's kind of like we were told about it, it's done. And so the people's voices were left out.
What else is coming? What else is leaving?
Well, and that's the worst part of the whole thing with Thompson Park Pool. Wherever side you come down on it, the way it happened has caused so many people to call into question, is the city council listening, and what are they doing that we don't know about? And that's probably the biggest tragedy of the whole Thompson Pool thing, is that the whole town now has doubt. the whole town now has lost some confidence in their city leaders.
It breeds
And
mistrust.
it does, and that's unfortunate, because, I mean, like I've said before, I'm not gonna sit here and say that I think the city council members have ill will necessarily for Amarillo, they just have a different vision than what I have, and from some other people, and they have mishandled a few things, you know, and I'm not trying to be rude about that, but they've kind of mishandled a few things, like the Thompson Park pool. And I don't think that they deliberately meant to cause the reaction that they got from the people in the city, but it has definitely reverberated across the town. You know, and there's been a few issues, and that was something we've been talking about that has done that the people just we didn't see it coming. You know, and they had meetings about, like the trash carts, they had the meetings and stuff, and people didn't know about it, people didn't go, or people didn't want to go, or whatever reason, the people weren't there. So the people felt like that, they felt like that was like the Thompson pool too, so then we got the trash carts and we got the Thompson pool. You know, and that's where we've got to get back to getting the word out, so that the people know that there's a meeting, you know, and people have to go to the meetings. It can't just be, we're having a meeting and then they don't go. You know, people have to be engaged, and that's another aspect of what we've got to deal with in Amarillo, and not just Amarillo, but in the whole country, is with people in general, is that people have to be engaged. People have to take an interest in their own community. I went to the North Heights meeting, and they were talking about that, how you have to get people to come together and work together towards what your community needs, and they were so right on about that. Because we have to be engaged, we have to get involved with our communities and get things to happen that we need to happen. The squeaky wheel gets oiled, you know, and so we've got to come together and work together towards the things that we need. And you know, that helps. The other side of that is the city council has to listen. You know, and the people, I know I've had a lot of people say they didn't feel like they were getting hurt, you know, and whether they were or not, I can't say, because I haven't been on the city council, so I can't speak to that.
I think, I don't know how these people feel, but I feel like the city council's gonna do it, no matter what anybody says. They've made a decision to do it, and they're gonna go ahead and do it, no matter what anybody else thinks.
I think there's a general, what I see is a general feeling, we know better than the people, and they're no better than anyone else. They're just a common citizen who was elected by the people to do a job, you know. But that didn't mean it was their job to just totally take over everything and run it and not involve the people. Because that is an attitude I greatly resent.
Yeah.
That, well, you're not smart enough, or you're not something to really know what's going on here. And so, since we're elected and we're in the position of power, we're going to use our positions of power and just do what, who knows who is recommending behind the scenes. And I have I just want to bring this up. When did the people ever get to vote on the name of the ballpark? Was anyone ever asked what they thought about that? I just drove into Amarillo one day, and there was the name of the ballpark up there, and I'm
See,
like,
who
who decided that?
Because I don't know how that was decided. I mean, I've heard that it was because he had donated some money and all that and whatever. And,
Well, that's just a side
but
issue.
as far as I know, that's just a rumor. I don't know that that's the case. But to address what the other part of what you're saying is I think, you know, human beings are fallible, and some people don't know. Well, let me rephrase this in a better way. But it's when people get in a position like we're talking about with the city leaders, it's easy to follow a plan that is put before you. And Amarillo has that plan. It's the blueprint for Amarillo. And so if you're wanting to feel like you have a success, and maybe you haven't laid out what you want to do, or maybe your vision for Amarillo wasn't clear in your mind, then you have this put in front of you, and it's easy to just follow that. And human nature likes to go along, to get along, and we don't like to question the things that are put before us. We like to say, well, this is easy, this is clear cut, this is laid out, so let's just follow this. And it's easy, any of us can be easy to say, well, let's just do that, that looks good. You know, and it's the hard thing is to stop and say, should we do that? Okay, someone who was here before me said we should do that. Should we? And that's what we have to do when you're in a position like that. You have to stop and say, yes, this sounds good. Yes, this looks good on paper. Should we? Do the people want that? And that's one of the things that I try to do, is I always try to think of everything from different points of view and different angles, and try to bring it in the perspective of myself. Is this something that I think is good? And if I have any doubt whatsoever about this particular thing, maybe someone else has a doubt that's a different point of view, and maybe we need to come back and revisit this, and we need to make sure that this is what the people want, especially when you have people coming to the meetings and saying, look, why are you doing this? I don't like this. So if the people are not happy, then we need to stop and say, well, let's reevaluate. Let's take a step back and let's say, is this what we really need to do? Is this what the people want? Or maybe we're just going too fast. Maybe it's not even that we're doing something wrong. Maybe we're just pushing so much through because we want to have all these accomplishments, and maybe we're just pushing through so fast people haven't had time to digest it. You know, and I think that's part of what's going on with downtown Amarillo. You know, I'm not opposed to development. I'm not opposed to improvements and all that kind of stuff. I think some of what we've had has been kind of pushed through a little fast. I think some of it has been trying to find the right way to say it. Some of it has been, like you said, just kind of shoved at us, and like the naming it Hodgetown or whatever, you know. And some of it seems that way and feels that way. And so when we have things that seem and feel that way, then it's very easy to feel like this feels that way because we didn't know about it. So dissatisfaction breeds more dissatisfaction, which breeds more dissatisfaction, and the more things happen that we are not prepared for, the more it breeds the dissatisfaction. And now, all that said, there are several things that I would not have done if it would have been me. You know, and so I think we need to take a hard look at what's going on and make some tough choices. There's going to be some tough choices. You know, if we want money for the Thompson Park pool, we might have to hold off on building this building over here. If we want the infrastructure taken care of, maybe we don't need another parking garage as bad as we think we do. Or maybe we can you know, do some things over here, or, you know, we're going to have to make some tough decisions, and it's going to be hard, because if we keep spending money at the rate we're spending money, we're going to be broke. We're either going to be jacking up the taxes really high, or we're going to be begging for a bailout from the government. And I personally don't want a bailout. You know, I don't want to see us go to that road. And from what I'm seeing, it just seems like we're just going so far, so fast, and anticipating this revenue coming in, and we're borrowing from the future. And we can't set that cycle up. Because if we set up a cycle of borrowing from the future, we're going to end up somewhere. Maybe not this city council, maybe not the next city council, maybe not even city council after that. We're going to eventually get to the point where it becomes a habit.